Smart Society, Sandile Malinga, and then the Deputy Director General, Chemicals and Waste Management of DFFE, Ms. Mamogala Musekeni. And after that, I'll give a brief update on the ESP. Upcoming projects which different World Bank clients will present on their challenges and opportunities in energy storage deployment in developing countries. This will be followed by After a lunch break, we'll have a session led by Vito Bera on perspectives on the system. We'll have presentations and discussions on South Africa's best value chain report, followed by a stakeholder feedback session. Then we'll have closing remarks by the World Bank's Operations Manager, Asmin Khan. So after the closing remarks, we look forward to having you all join us for a site visit to the CSIR testbed and PV facility. Finally, we'll end the day with the ESP Stakeholder Forum reception. Therefore, without further ado, I would like to kindly invite the World Bank's Global Director of Energy and Extractives, Dimitrios Papathanassiou, to provide his opening remarks. Dimitrios has been generous with his time and with his sleep, and he's up at 2 a.m. to join us in person. So over to you, Dimitrios. Thank you.
Juliet, thank you so much for the kind introduction. And I'm quite a bit jet lagged from my last trip in Asia, so it's not a big deal to connect early in the morning. And I wish I was there in person, but there is so much going on in Washington these days with the Evolution Roadmap. So my apologies, I missed the chance to visit South Africa this time. So let me start by thanking everyone for joining this now, especially our colleagues at the Council for Scientific and Industrial Research of South Africa who are hosting us for this. And I wanted to briefly discuss what has been happening since the last time the Energy Storage Partnership got together and what's happening with our efforts to support energy storage deployment globally. So first of all, energy storage, as we all know, is essential to shift from traditional thermal projects to the kinds of projects that combine the use of renewable energy with storage. These so-called hybrid projects and their ability to store excess renewable energy during periods of low demand and to release electricity during peak demand promote a more stable and reliable energy supply. Now, the case for such projects is very compelling, but we have much work to do to get it done at a much larger scale, at lower costs, and at the global level. So here are some numbers that we put together on the World Bank. Last year, the World Bank has helped to install approximately 192 gigawatts of solar and 75 gigawatts of wind power. However, the World Bank financed new storage systems only reached around 16 gigawatts by 35 gigawatt hours. So in other words, renewable energy supply still far outstrips the storage capacity. And this reflects the situation that is emerging globally as well. Recognizing that we have a big gap to fill so that we can better use renewable energy, the World Bank, through our Energy Sector Management Assistance Program, ESMA, is putting all these efforts, working with all of you in the room, to mobilize concessional funding for battery storage projects in developing countries, to improve our knowledge and our understanding of the potential of the technology and to accelerate deployment. We have mobilized about $850 million in climate financing over the past 3 years to support battery storage projects, including financing of 5.5 gigawatt hours of battery energy storage capacity already in active projects and an additional 3.7 gigawatt hours, which we have in the pipeline. And this includes projects that we're doing with ESCOM in South Africa. Through ESMA, we provide developing countries with technical assistance to address knowledge gaps for all forms of storage, including advanced battery systems. we will launch later today a comprehensive practical report to assist countries in structuring bankable hybrid solar plus storage projects to unlock private capital and reduce dependence on public finances. This report is called Unlocking the Energy Transition, Guidelines for Planning Solar plus Storage Projects, and you can download its executive summary on the ESMOC website already. The full report will be available very soon at the end of the month, in about a month, in early December at COP28, we will officially launch the full report. And what we've done in that is we try to distill the global experience of the World Bank and other players with projects that combine solar energy generation with energy storage systems and give a framework on how to plan and execute these types of projects. This is about helping to understand, plan, and implement utility-scale solar plus storage power plants while leveraging private capital. The proposed four-phase framework covers project identification and planning, business model selection, and adaptation. It also provides a sample power purchasing agreement and a term sheet template to streamline the adoption of these types of projects. We hope that these practical tools will be helpful to developers and our partners globally, especially so in countries where the use of fossil fuels is very expensive, especially when we have liquid fuels. That is many of the African countries, which deepen the vulnerability on the prices of fossil fuels and quite often drains limited public resources. After the report, we have some interesting projects on the ground supported by the Energy Storage Partnership. One of them is the Morocco Energy Storage Testing Project, which is financed by a $4.5 million grant through ESMAP to support the country in designing, building, and operating a storage testing facility. The so-called test bed will generate insights on advanced storage solutions and support Morocco's renewable energy growth, demonstrating our commitment to accelerating deployment of energy storage globally, but especially in Africa. In terms of country collaboration, India is a prime example of our efforts. Last fiscal year, the World Bank has helped to finance the largest battery storage project ever, a 120 megawatt hour facility, which was awarded by the Solar Energy Corporation of India. This showcases the power of our joint action, and it will be an opportunity for us to learn more from that deployment, as we have been learning a lot from the way we design and put the project together. We're also working in deploying storage solutions for small island development states. For instance, in the Maldives, we helped the government to sign its first ever storage project last August for a 40 megawatt hour capacity across 5 of the outer islands of the country. This will enable further scaling of clean energy, which is crucial for decentralized small island grids, such as those we have in the Maldives. And we feel that this type of application and what we're learning from that will be very relevant to almost all small island development states across the world. Now, moving forward, I just want to reiterate our commitment to tailored strategies for each country and see potential in supporting India, Morocco, South Africa, and other first movers in developing hybrid renewable energy projects with storage and at a larger scale. We all look forward to continue to collaborate with you, our partners across various sectors, to scale the solutions that enable our global South countries to benefit from the energy transition. I know that together we made a lot of progress. We obviously need to make much more progress. And I wanted to thank you all for participating. And again, thanks to our South African hosts for having this event taking place. The best on your intelligence, personally very keen to find out more about the findings of the report on the South Africa battery energy storage system value chain potential, which I think is very relevant as we try to think of how we scale up batteries around the world, and how do we make sure that we understand what will be the right things to do to get more of the value added as we manufacture batteries closer to the source of the primary materials. So thank you very much. And with this, I'll pass it on back to you, Julie. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Demetrius. We really appreciate your time, and we hope you can pop in again later on in the day at a more reasonable time of the day. Thank you. So next, I will call upon Dr. Sandile Malinga of CSIR to give his introductory remarks.
Good morning, distinguished guests, esteemed colleagues, members and partners of the Energy Storage Partnership. It's a pleasure for me to welcome you today to the CSR International Convention Center. We're delighted as the CSR to host you here today for the 10th World Bank Energy Storage Partnership Conference. A conference that we're co-hosting together with the Department of Forestry, Fisheries, as well as the Environment. And we're delighted that the department is here and supporting us in this initiative together with the World Bank. This is the second time we're hosting this conference here, the Energy Storage Partnership, here at the CSR and here in South Africa. And indeed, the first time we hosted this meeting and this gathering led to the CSR Energy Storage Test Bed that I'm made to believe some of you will be visiting together with our PV lab later today. The Energy Storage Test Bed that we've developed, that you'll be seeing today, was developed under the framework of the ESP, as already indicated, in partnership with the Flemish government as well as VITO. The work and tireless work that was undertaken as part of this project culminated in His Majesty the King of the Belgians, King Philippe, coming to South Africa earlier this year when we were launching this test bed. And since then, there's been great progress with regards to that project. The 10th World Bank ESP meeting marks a substantial milestone in our collective pursuit of sustainable energy solutions in the world, in our country, and in our continent. And so I'm very, very honored to open this ESP Stakeholder Forum on behalf of the CSIR. The CSIR, or Council for Scientific and Industrial Research, stands at the forefront of scientific research, industrial innovation in South Africa, and exists under the oversight and continued support of the Department of Science and Innovation. And I want to take this opportunity to thank the department, the DSI, for continually supporting us, including us hosting this meeting today. In its 70 year, the CSR is this year turning 78 years. And the legacy of the CSR over this illustrious period has been dedicated to advancing knowledge, technology, and innovation for the betterment of our nation, our continent, and globally as a global contributor to research and innovation. Our multidisciplinary approach enables us as an institution to tackle complex challenges that are facing humanity as we develop cutting-edge solutions that are making an impact in the various sectors of our community. And indeed, the CSR has 3 divisions which have activities that range from agriculture, chemistry, health, smart living, or smart places, smart mobility, next generation in terms of IT advancement, security, as well as manufacturing and mining. That's the whole span of what the CSR does. Today, as we're gathered here as delegates representing our institutions and our countries, but more importantly, we're gathered here as partners who are gathered to address a global challenge that is facing us as humanity today. The global challenge of ensuring access to affordable, reliable, and sustainable modern energy for all. And indeed, this is in line with the Sustainable Development Goal number 7. The energy landscape across the world is undergoing profound transformation under the existential threat of climate change, as we all know it. And it's becoming very, very urgent that we collectively and collaboratively address climate change, coupled with the imperative of ensuring energy security and access. And it is this that places and makes this gathering very, very important and of great significance as we're gathered here today. It is imperative for us to explore and to implement sustainable solutions that can drive a just transition to a low-carbon, resilient energy world system. And it's important for all of us, coming from different institutions and organizations, to work together to seek ways of addressing this challenge of energy in a low-carbon environment. It is in this context that this stakeholder forum is important, and it taking place at this time cannot be overstated. As we gather here in our country, which is usually sunny, today is cloudy. This is not typical of climate here. And this is a country and a continent, if one was to add, that holds immense potential for renewable energy resources. And as we gather here, we're reminded of the unique challenges and opportunities that exist within the continent in terms of expanding renewable, whether it's solar or wind. The potential is immense for our country, it's immense for our continent as a whole. And so this gathering is very, very important in driving and shaping that agenda that's important to transform our energy in the continent into a resilient and accessible and affordable energy for the future. Africa's vast and ever-growing energy needs, coupled with its rich renewable energy potential, makes it a focus for the development and deployment of robust energy storage solutions. Through collaborative efforts and knowledge sharing, we can work together and unlock the full potential of renewable energy resources across the continent and the globe as a whole. This we can achieve by working together, by collaborating, and we are very, very delighted with the World Bank and this initiative that seeks to foster such collaboration. The World Bank Energy Storage Partnership Meeting presents an essential platform for dialogue, for learning, and for collaboration. It brings together experts, innovators, policymakers, and stakeholders from all around the globe, providing a forum for the exchange of ideas and the forging of partnerships. Together, we aim to accelerate the deployment and creation of energy storage technologies, steering progress towards a more viable, comprehensive, and sustainable energy future. As I come close to an end as the CSR, we would like to thank the World Bank and its partner countries and institutions under the Energy Storage Management Assistance Program, SMAP, for the continued support and the efforts that are geared to promote and to fast-track and to drive initiatives of energy storage. As the CSR and as a country and a continent, we're committed to leveraging the support and for the betterment of our country as well as the continent and the world as a whole. Lastly, I would like to express my gratitude and that of the CSR to our government, as well as our board and the people of our country, and to you all for being part of this gathering today. We trust that you will, in the course of the next couple of days, use your expertise, your dedication, and shared commitment to come up with new innovations, to come up with new programs and ideas on how we can address this challenge that we're faced with as humanity. I trust that we'll all approach the next few days with open minds, in a spirit of collaboration, and a determination to make a meaningful contribution and progress in the field of energy storage for our future, a future that our children are going to be proud of. And I trust that in the next few days, while you're in the country, you will enjoy our scenery. I hope the weather will lift up a bit. And as you join us as we celebrate the recent victory that we had for our rugby team. Thank you very much.
Program Director, leadership of the CSIR, World Bank, and partners, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. I hope you are enjoying the hospitality that Pretoria, our administrative capital, has to offer. We are proud to be co-hosting this engagement with the CSIR. South Africa's commitment to tackling biodiversity loss, climate change, and pollution is long-standing and unwavering. It is born out of the understanding that although developing economies have made little contribution to global warming, as the global community, we must all contribute to our fair share of addressing this crisis. Our nationally determined contribution submitted in 2021 sets out an ambitious emission reduction trajectory that is compatible with the Paris Agreement. It requires international support for South Africa's NDC's achievement. Our commitment articulated in our National Development Plan 2030 to implementing a long-term and well-managed transition to a low-carbon economy is now concretized in this plan and partnership that we are implementing. It takes into account South Africa's energy and climate policies. These policies reflect our determination to diversify our energy mix and ensure that our transition to a low-carbon economy contributes to our efforts to tackle inequality, poverty, and unemployment. We stand ready to work collaboratively with international and local partners to turn our vision of a better, sustainable future for South Africa and the world into a reality. The Department of Forestry, Fisheries and the Environment is a key department in making sure that while we try to ensure a diverse energy mix in the country, that the environment and human health are at the forefront of any considerations that we make. Removing the regulatory burden for the development and expansion of battery storage systems and for dealing with the end of life of batteries are key priorities. New renewable energy generating facilities need environmental impact assessments to be followed before any construction and operation can happen. The same would have applied to any existing energy generating facility that wanted to implement any storage system to support their operation. The department is seeing the importance of having energy storage together with the renewable system and realize that there is urgency in the need for energy storage. Some of these issues were raised in the partners meeting held yesterday. The department published a battery storage exclusion norm, which is currently being consulted on. This would mean that storage systems could be constructed at a faster rate than usual. About 2 weeks ago, the Trade and Industrial Policy Strategies TIPS It's a unit within the Department of Trade, Industry and Competition. They have shared their outcomes of a report on key findings on localizing battery value chains in South Africa, which are based on their research on opportunities to develop the lithium-ion battery value chain. Localizing vanadium battery production for South Africa's energy security. This shows that the country is more than capable of developing the battery industry. And in order for the country to achieve this, it will require our support, especially from the multiple stakeholders, the World Bank and others, in terms of ensuring that we gain from the Energy Sector Management Assistance Program. Our participation as partners to the Energy Storage Partnership, together with the CSIR, Mintech and UNISA and other local partners, is an indication of the country's commitment towards advancing formalization of circular economy of batteries in South Africa and on the African continent through development of industries for the reuse, repurposing, and recycling of batteries. One of our mandates as the department is to ensure environmentally sound management of waste. This is enabled through our legislation. It means that we need to ensure that as we advance our transition towards decarbonization, we develop new products and industry taking into consideration the end of life of these products. The waste sector is a major contributor to the country's economy. Growing the recycling industry is one of the department's priorities. As such, in line with our statutory mandate, we have in November of 2020 published extended producer responsibility regulations, which obligate producers of certain products, including electronics and batteries, to take responsibility for the environmentally sound management of their products, including take-back, collection, recovery, and recycling of those products. This legislation further promotes circular economy and requires that producers develop infrastructure for the end of life and the management of their products. Battery secondary use, remanufacturing, repurposes are enablers of circular economy. Through battery recycling, the materials can be recovered and recirculated for use. There is a gap in recycling for lithium-ion batteries, and we believe that the EPR legislation has created an enabling environment for investments in recycling of these batteries. To further support this, we have banned the disposal of all electronic waste and batteries, including lithium-ion batteries, from landfills since August 2021. It is indeed exciting times as we've seen recent developments and initiatives in the industry on working together to achieve these EPR objectives. The collaboration between University of the Western Cape and the industry partner on the development of a new lithium battery recycling facility is one such example, and I believe that those of you who have chosen the site visit option will see this firsthand on Thursday. We believe that as we continue to work together with industry and other partners, that as government we can continue to create the requisite enabling environment to support the local industry energy storage value chains, taking advantage of our minerals and support innovation and development of new technologies. Indeed, it is an opportunity for us as South Africa to contribute to a low carbon economy. Delegates, as you deliberate in your discussions this week, we are glad that we are partnering with the CSIR and the technologies that are there, the lessons that need to be learned, the ways that we need to also improve the storage and the use. Let us remember that as we work towards decarbonization and reaching our climate goals, that Africa, we need solutions that are suitable and adaptable to our continent, taking into consideration the circularity and extended lifespan of products that also reduce the quantities of the waste that is generated. It is no doubt that we have the minerals, the research, the innovation capabilities to develop our battery storage industry, and through leveraging on the support of our partners, we can accelerate the developments in this area. I wish you well in your engagements this week, and we wish to make sure that we are able to grow this area, and good luck with the engagements. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So I'll just give a few updates on the Energy Storage Partnership, very short. So once again, esteemed stakeholders, partners, ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of the ESP Secretariat, I warmly welcome you to this milestone event, the Energy Storage Partnership's 10th Stakeholder Forum and Partners Meeting. As we reflect upon the remarkable journey of the ESP over the past 4 years, it is evident that we have achieved significant milestones together. Notably, we have had the privilege of welcoming new partners into our partnership, including esteemed multilateral organizations such as the African Development Bank and the UNDP. This underscores the crucial need multilaterals need to unite on pivotal topics such as energy storage, and the ESP serves as a vital platform for this collaboration. Our expanding family also includes ministries such as ESP partners, exemplified by the Ministry of Public Utilities, Energy, Logistics, and E-Governance of Belize, and the Ministry of Energy and Mineral Resources of Jordan. This highlights the growing demand from World Bank clients for active engagement within the energy storage community, seeking not only lessons learned from World Bank projects, but also from other partners and the private sector. Internally, we have strengthened collaborations within the World Bank, forging closer partnerships with the IFC and the Climate Investment Fund's Global Energy Storage Program to further our collective mission. Over the past 4 years, we have diligently developed practical tools and useful resources, including the PPA framework for hybrid projects, the storage sizing app, the warranties for batteries and energy storage systems in developing countries report. In addition, our webinar series has provided valuable insights into a range of topics from recycling, lithium-ion batteries to pumped hydro storage, and thermal storage solutions. Another core pillar of our capacity building efforts is the Virtual Energy Storage Academy, which is offered in collaboration with the Indian Energy Storage Association. After successfully launching 3 modules earlier this year, we are currently working on 2 new modules, namely an introduction to long-duration energy storage by our partner, the LDES Council, and best safety operations guidelines by another partner, PNNL. Our commitment to gender diversity is steadfast, and we are thrilled to announce the upcoming launch of the 3rd cohort of our Women in Energy Storage Mentorship Program. Please stay tuned as we work together with GWNet on this exciting cohort. This initiative plays a crucial role in empowering young women by providing them with tailored mentoring and knowledge-sharing events. And its primary objective is to enhance the representation of women in decision-making roles within the energy sector. Looking ahead, next year marks the 5th anniversary of the Energy Storage Partnership. And during the partners meeting yesterday, we discussed and brainstormed on new work streams and activities that will culminate in this celebration. You can look forward to an array of exciting partner events under the ESP umbrella. Once again, I would like to extend our heartfelt gratitude to our co-hosts for this year's ESP Stakeholder Forum and Partners Meeting, the Council for Scientific and Industrial Research and the Department of Forestries, Fisheries and the Environment of South Africa. Together with our co-hosts, we have planned an exciting 4-day event, including interesting and once-in-a-lifetime site visits to places such as the CSIR testbed and PV facility, ESCOM testbed facility, and Bushveld Minerals Energy Mine. As we chart our course forward, we aspire to streamline our meetings, transitioning from twice-yearly gatherings to one major event per year. Your participation and support has been instrumental in our collective success, and we look forward to the exciting journey that lies ahead. Thank you all for joining us on this remarkable journey to support the scaling up of the deployment of energy storage globally. This session is now over, and I would like to hand over to the Energy Storage Program Lead, Amit Jan, to take us through the next session on the World Bank's clients' programs. Thank you once again, and welcome to the Energy Storage Partnership Stakeholder Forum.
First, thank you, Juliet, for chairing such a high-powered session, especially. This is okay. I want this one. Especially including our global director and other senior folks. A very good morning to all of you. Now we jump into the second session of today, which is looking at challenges and opportunities for energy storage deployment in developing countries. May I request the esteemed panelist, Mr. Ryan Cobb, Director of Energy Ministry of Public Utilities, Belize, to be joining us at the stage. May I request Mr. Fred Bailey, Senior Engineer, Nampower, Namibia, to please join us. And may I request Mr. Ahmed Munir, Director Power Cell from Power Division, Bangladesh, to please confirm if he has joined us online.
Yes, I'm just connected online, yes.
Thank you, Mr. Ahmed.
This is Munir Ahmed, yes, I'm connected online, yes.
Thank you very much, and we can... Mr. Ahmed, can I request you to please be on mute so that we don't have an echo? Thank you. All right, so before I start with my colleagues on the dais, I just want to make a connection of what happened yesterday and what we are doing in this session, especially with respect to what Dimitrios said in the morning about the solar plus storage revolution slowly coming us across the globe. Yesterday, we also heard my colleague Talal, who explained in details the 4-phase framework which ESP team has put together, and it was released by Dimitrios in the morning. As Dimitrios mentioned, the executive summary is now available online, and we will be sharing the QR code and the website details with you very shortly. But again, what I'm trying to say is, yesterday we heard from Anthony from AFDB how projects on solar plus storage are happening on the ground. We heard from Talal on a very high level how the 4-phase framework, the decision tree, is going to help policymakers and decision makers to implement. And today we are going a much more deeper dive, hearing from my colleagues from Belize, Bangladesh and Namibia, what they have done in their countries, in the projects happening. Before I go to them, I would just wanted to give you what are the trends happening globally. Okay, yesterday we learned that both solar and storage is going very strong. I just wanted to give you a glimpse of where and how storage is happening. So I'm going to present only 2 slides. If you look at this slide, storage, which was 16 gigawatts last year, up 68%. Last year was very good for storage. 50% of that storage went to energy shifting, went to arbitrage, which means governments were using storage to store solar and wind in the afternoon and using that storage in the evening. This is the business model which can be easily monetized and which is what the governments are doing across the globe. Okay? 50% of storage is going to this particular use case of storage. Second, 30% of storage is going behind the meter, mostly in developed economies like California, Germany, and Portugal, where you have rooftop systems. So in order to have an independence from the grid or less reliable from the grid, more and more homemakers in these countries are installing storage in their household behind the meter. This is not still coming up in developing countries, but very popular in developed economies. Third, ancillary services. As we discussed yesterday, the more solar and the more wind we have, it puts a pressure on your grid. Your voltage fluctuation and your frequency control goes haywire with higher percentage of solar and storage. So many utilities are taking storage as ancillary services. Rest of the use cases, which are more than 30 and 40, are only contributing to 5%. Okay? So this is where the storage is going. Now, let us learn how storage is going in terms of chronology. Okay? So if I have Belize and Namibia on the dais, and if I ask them, and if correct me if I'm my understanding, this is what at least the World Bank and Bloomberg is saying. The first storage which countries want to have is for ancillary services. That's the first step they want to take because they want to stabilize their grid. They don't want to have higher curtailment. They don't want to have a grid and frequency controls to go haywire. So that's why the first step they take is short-term storage, 30 minutes to 2 hours, and for ancillary services. Second, and which is where the maximum storage is going, is energy shifting, medium-term storage between 4 to 6 hours, which is the 50% of where it is going. Step number 3, which is where the world is heading, we are looking at replacement of baseload thermal by long-term storage, which is called round-the-clock in India, and even in South Africa, Eskom has launched several tenders where they are trying to displace the base load by using solar, wind, and storage and other technologies. This is the latest trend where base load is now coming popular. It is expensive, but it is becoming popular now going forward. As I mentioned, case of India and case of South Africa is over here. Now, with this overall trend, I just wanted to give you 2 quick examples, okay, before again I hand over to my colleagues on the dais. Step number 1, ancillary services, example of Maldives over here. They recently procured 40 megawatt hours of storage under the World Bank program. My colleague from Maldives is right here sitting, who we have partnered with them for many, many years. As I mentioned, Maldives first procured not for arbitrage, not looking at behind the meter. They wanted to safeguard their grid from too much of solar and wind. Okay, so they installed 40 megawatt hours of battery contract, which is now under construction phase. Second is the case of Burkina Faso, which again Anthony mentioned in morning presentation on Sahel. They are looking at a 4-hour storage, look for arbitrage, storing solar in the afternoon and using in the evening. Because evening peak power is very expensive, they want to use the solar in the afternoon to displace the evening peak power. Third is India or Africa, as I mentioned, where we are looking at baseload power. Now, India being a large country is trying everything. The first project in the peak power, which is again financed by the World Bank, we are displacing a thermal generator in the evening, which is old and expensive. So solar, wind, and storage, a project under construction financed by World Bank, will displace a thermal generator in the evening. Then we have standalone storage projects being developed by these companies in India, which are at very high price, looking at between 8 to 10 cents, but India is trying to have a standalone storage as well. And finally, round-the-clock bits, where we are trying to displace the baseload power. Okay, so with this background, I would first invite my colleague from Belize to share his presentation and views on what Belize is doing over there. Thank you.
Presentation for Belize. Yes. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for having me here. I'll go through a brief presentation on the Belizean context and how we will be utilizing battery energy storage on the grid for Belize. Just before we begin, Belize is a Caribbean country that's located in Central America. Is not working. Okay. Okay. Yeah. So just wanted to give you a little bit of overview of the energy sector in Belize. Belize is a very unique case. I know that just a couple of minutes ago you would have heard that in battery energy storage, there are 3 particular steps that countries would like to take. First would be ancillary services, then energy shifts, and then other uses. Belize is in a unique case. Why? Because Belize is already producing over 50% of all of its electricity from renewable energy sources. The other 50% we get directly from an interconnection that we have with Mexico. Our issue, one, is not that of energy prices, nor that in the reduction of productions from fossil fuels. Why? Because production within the country is not based on fossil fuels, but based on renewable energy. So what are we going to be using battery energy storage for? We will be using battery energy storage primarily for the energy shifting, being that we have certain constraints with our importation directly in from Mexico, being that we are limited to the amounts that we can bring in, and we're also limited by the transmission system on the Mexican side. So what we need to do is we need to find a solution where we'll be able to store power in Belize and use it during peak hours. Just so happens to be that these peak hours are at about 6 o'clock in the afternoon, 6 to 7 o'clock in the afternoon, and about 7 to 9 o'clock in the morning. That also happens to be when power is the most expensive, being imported from Mexico. So a battery energy solution solves two issues for us. One, it helps us to shift the energy that we use, and 2, we would actually be able to use power from Mexico to charge the batteries at night when power is cheapest. And to be quite sincere, sometimes we're even paid to receive that power from Mexico and then deploy that during the day. Other reasons that we're doing it is because we're doing it in response to climate change. Our grid has been traditionally we've been able to predict our resources, which are primarily from hydro and biomass. But due to climate change, we've seen severe droughts within our country, which affects both the hydro production and biomass production. What's interesting is that although we are blessed with a lot of solar radiation in Belize, we really don't have any large-scale solar operating within the country. We are planning on installing approximately 60 megawatts of solar by 2025, 2026, but our needs are a bit more immediate, hence why we are moving with BESS solutions before the installation of solar. As you can see here, our prices are not that far off from the median from United States prices. It's much lower than that which is in the Caribbean, which is primarily fossil fuel based. This is local currency, which is 42 cents local Belize dollars. In US dollars, this would approximately be about 30 cents. So it's about 2-to-1 ratio. We're also foreseeing that power consumption and power demand is increasing at a rate of about 7 to 10% every year with the increase of industry and tourism within the country. Just this year, we completed our energy policy, which has an overarching goal of attaining 75% of renewables by the year 2030. But if we implement battery energy storage solutions and 60 megawatts of solar, we believe we can attain this as early as 2026. As I stated, Belize has tremendous potential for renewable energies, both in solar, biomass, and also some wind. So, what are our plans specifically for battery energy storage solutions? We are planning on installing 40 megawatts divided among 4 different site locations among the country to meet particular load cells or load areas within the country within existing transmission and operating areas that we have within the country. So it would need minimal grid upgrades in order to install these installations. What will this also do? This will also help us with auxiliary services once we bring solar online as well. And of course, because we're within a region that's highly prone to hurricanes, it also helps us with our resilience, specifically that when we need black starting capabilities. This just goes, again, what I was just saying. The objective is to integrate more renewables within the country, where we want to achieve 75%. These are the different locations in areas in Ladyville, Orange Walk, Independence, and San Pedro. San Pedro being a very special case. San Pedro is an island that we have within the country that's one of the major tourism hubs. It has a typical load of approximately 15 megawatts. But this island is fed by a submarine cable, which has a capacity of 17.5 kVA. Now, what we are looking at is that currently that line is getting it up to its upper technical limits. And if that cable were to go down, this would be a major, major disaster for this island. So by implementing 10 megawatts of battery storage on the island, we'd be able to reduce the load on the cable and increase the resilience of the grid on the island itself. With this, of course, we'll also be doing upgrades to our transmission and distribution systems, and the bank will also be providing technical assistance and increasing capacity within both the ministry and the government, not just the Ministry of Energy, but ministries of finance, ministries of environment, and so forth. We are hoping to have this operational by 2025, and we're currently working on this with the bank right now. Just a map of where we'll be locating the batteries. This is the special case that I was speaking of an island that is being fed by a submarine cable. This is the primary load center of the country near the commercial capital, which is called Belize City. Another one in the south to stabilize this section of the grid. As you can see, our grid is somewhat radial, so the ancillary services really comes beneficial of what the batteries can provide to our system, and another one up in the country. To give a little bit more of context, the country itself, the load is only about 150 megawatts, entire load of the country. And our population is only approximately 400,000. But if anybody knows about the size of Jamaica, we are about twice the size of the country of Jamaica, which means that our transmission and distribution system is a lot more sparse. Hence why we have, I won't say losses, non-technical losses, but we do have technical losses just due to the distance these transmission grids covers. So what are the challenges that we foresee within the country? Well, first, we need to see how to properly procure, supply, and install it. Find an operation and maintenance model that best suits the country's needs. Because our national distributor and generator, our national distributor and transmission is actually a private entity, while all other IPPs are also independently operated as well. We are looking to optimize the system by creating an independent system operator now. So the independent system operator will now be able to do dispatching in merit orders and in merit of economic dispatch as well. We also have to now develop new strategies and regulatory frameworks, because currently the country doesn't have any of these within a battery. But at the same time, we cannot wait to develop these and then go and procure the batteries. So we must do this in parallel. And from what I've seen from the presentation is that it seems that a lot of countries are following this strategy as well. And of course, then after we do this, we need to see how we'll be able to invite the private sector as well to participate in it. Because involving the private sector is really the only way how to properly operate these types of facilities and expand for future need cases. Thank you.
Such an interesting presentation. I learned a lot. I'll just quick takeaways. So much learning from this presentation. Like other island countries, Belize with a 500,000 population, and I'm able to relate because I've spent a lot of time in Maldives. You're installing 40 megawatt of storage, and the unique thing is you're connected to Mexico, and the system, there's so many permission combination because you can export and import from Mexico, and you decided to import from Mexico in the night because power is cheap, and you can stabilize the system. Excellent presentation. Thank you very much. I have a quick question before I move to the next one. Now, in your presentation, you mentioned components, 3 components, and you rightly mentioned this is typical for any island. So the 3 components are, I'm adding 1, solar/wind. Second is battery storage. Third is grid upgrade. Okay. In your experience, if you had, $10, whatever it is, where will you put your money first, second, and third in terms of timing?
In terms of timing, we would definitely need to put the infrastructure first because of the current necessities that we have right now. But that doesn't mean that we will do infrastructure and then the capacity building. There is no reason why both can go hand in hand at the same time. As many engineers know, the best teacher is experience, and the best teacher is to actually do projects. And we believe that this is the best approach that we can do right now.
Absolutely right. This is one I want to share with you. We are all big fans of solar and storage. The big mistake which we all do, including myself, is to mindlessly go for solar. Step number 1 is grid upgrade. You have to first enable the infrastructure on the ground to be able to absorb some kind of solar, especially in island countries where the grid is very weak. So grid first, and then technically speaking, storage next. And as again, my colleague is first procuring storage and then solar. Sometimes, many times, it's the opposite way which is happening, which is leading to huge curtailment and also instability among grid. Okay. So with this, let's move to our second speaker, my colleague from Bangladesh. Again, I had the opportunity to work in Bangladesh for many years. Sir, over to you.
To go participate in present, but unfortunately we can make it down. Anyway, I love to correct it over virtual mode. It's okay. So energy storage opportunity and challenges in Bangladesh. Actually, we are just very early stages to do, go with the battery storage incorporation in our system. Actually, before, please next, please. Okay. Just have a quick at a glance. It is the situation of our present situation in our country. Actually, you see the present installation capacity. It's almost 23 gigawatt, and we just import almost 2.5 gigawatt from our neighboring country. This is the. I just want to mention this thing, because a huge number of quantity of electricity, it is still not yet been connected with the grid. That is all the industry, they are just use almost 3 megawatt of power. They are just using through their captive. And we just come forward to, with many other options, we just try to look into the battery storage or some other thing as a replacement of their captive. Next, please. Okay, this is the fuel mix. Actually, right now you see there is a very minimum percentage of renewable energy. It's 1.5% only, and we have a long vision to move forward to, and rapidly it is increasing the generation fuel mix in the renewable sources. So we just make it more efficient and effective by incorporation of the battery storage with the renewable and the solution of the ramping problem. Next, please. Yes, this is the actually our consumption pattern. Actually, in our country, you see industrial mostly power is consumed by domestic. Actually, this is the main problem in your country. Is the main caterer of the demand is comes from the domestic consumption is very, and industrial power is 32%, but still quite a good number of quantity of electricity that is there generated from their own sources. And what they are actually generating, they just curtail the gas from that was actually allotted for the power division, and they are just utilized. It is a very only 25% efficient thermal efficiency. They are just doing what we can actually generate almost double. So we just want to give them another solution so that they just come from the captive power, and if they just connected to our grid, then we can do much more, and the grid will be much better in performing all these things. And I'll just come back once again, and because the captive power, it is a government, a lot of incentives is given there because the taxation and some policies completely given in favor of them. So it is very, it's making very juicy for them to go for captive. And unless and until we just give them the options, so they are not willing to connect the grid. But their main complaint about the grid connected power sources is they just complain it is not reliable sources, the voltage fluctuation and the frequency is not stable. That is their common complaint. So we cannot, we just come up with a better solution. So and among many other options, but we just think battery could be play a vital role in this area. Next, please. Okay, this is our actual demand pattern in our daily, in the seasonal and daily pattern. Is in the summer you just see peak hour is 12 megawatt, gigawatt or is a demand, and minimum low peak is 8.5 gigawatt. And on the, in the other hands, you just see in the winter, that is the 5.5 gigawatt, and it's just a 9.5 gigawatt. That is actually, you see, it's a very this scenario, the difference between the off and high peak and low peak is a very huge, and only very few time for the small time in the evening peak they just cater, and the power generation and peaking load is utilized at that time, and just for a few hours, and rest of the time it's kept idle. So their capex is go up very high, and during that time the peaking load power plants and the production cost is very, very high. And we can make actually give a better solution, as a battery could be a better solution. We are just thinking on also water pump lifting and some other thing, but although we have only one hydropower plant in our country, so we cannot go to that options. Okay, next please. Yeah, this is the challenge actually. The load is, demand actually is increasing very fast and very quickly, almost around more than 10% actually the demand is increasing every year. And generation at the, actually they are just increasing at the same space. But sometimes it is a completely, sometimes it's a mismatch, and there is the, because the infrastructure generation is growing up at the same time, the transmission and distribution is also growing at the same paces, but sometimes it's a mismatch. So the voltage and some other problem is also found there. And because the demand and generation, they're just working on that, and at the same time, because our backbone is very, transmission backbone is not that much strong. So we are just improving all these things, but in intermediate time, we are just facing a lot of problems, especially in the, if you see in the map and in the northern part, like, because there is a huge acute voltage and frequency crisis during the evening and peak time. And there are another source, we just exchange the electricity from that, and also, and frequency and other voltage issues are very common, and nuclear power plant is upcoming, so there is a very much power generation will be there. The base load is upcoming very in the grid. So we need to manage the whole things, because nowadays a huge portion of load are actually peaking load. There is a gas-based generator, very easy to handle, but now more coal and nuclear power plant is upcoming. So then there could be a very big challenges, and also renewable energy is also upcoming, and there's continuous credit, and the ramping problem is also there. And there is, moreover, there is some another problem is here, a tri-wheeler, that is the EV. Actually, it is a lead acid battery they are using. There is a huge number of battery that is completely unplanned, but it is actually throughout the country. It is it also create the problem with our existing grid distribution grid system. And moreover, climate changing is there, so that we are just using more domestic power, and the air condition HVAC system is there. But heating is not, we don't use that much, but our cooling power is actually very much needed. And you will see our node is like this, because our shell is been and as I mentioned, the industry must because they are the government incentives that most of the now put it almost due to, they are just getting a lot of their generation cost very close, but we'll switch the position soon. And investment in power sector and especially such type of things is a very challenge because the cost of capital in our local bank is very high. So it is not, it can never be a bankable to if we just drastically go the Swiss to the another option like newer technology adoption. Okay, next please. Yes, why we just choose energy storage and especially battery storage? Because the price of the battery is drastically going down. If you just observe the few years back, it is very going down, and it become a nowadays it is upcoming. We just need to cope up with the system, and the advantages is that quietly it is a very flexible. It can be work as a load, or also as a generator. It can store. It can handle the VRE, variable renewable energy. They just easily ramp up, ramp down our grid stability. So it helps the whole things actually. The battery, if we just properly apply the battery storage in the particular area and identified area, that will be, it is not only focused on the cost, its value is very, very tremendous impact in the value. So that will be completely helpful for our grid system, and also VRE will be more efficiently to operate in this. And nowadays we have a good planning of rooftop solar and net metering, so they can actually be more interested in incorporate if they just incorporate the battery storage. Even another issue you see here in our in Bangladesh, it's a very highly dense populated area, and almost each and every apartment building have their own captive generator is there, and battery could be the good replacement for them to do it. And we have also conduct the study. Okay, next please. Next, please. Yes. Yeah, European Union, they have conducted a study on BSC system, and they just actually focus on the utility scale. They just identify the, they just value filling and peak saving, they just study on it, and study state calculation, how they impact, and if there is fault is there, what is the sensitivity is there. They just but BSS disperse and financial statistics is how it can be feasible, and all details they have done. But it is they just study on the utility scale, not the individual user end, but they just study on the utility scale. Next, please. Yes, this is another study is undergoing. It is not yet been completed. We just focus this thing just to use it in the user end, and the study of the same how the distribution and transmission should be more stable and more effective. The variable renewable energies more efficient way to perform in this. Although it is in our country, it's a very it is not that much potentially in renewable sources because we don't have enough land. All land are very much, because if we just consider the food security, that we need more land for cultivation. And also we are just trying to do it through rooftop and some other sources and incorporation of the battery. And we have just through the ADB project, we just focus on we just make how to replace the captive power to the industry, connect them with the grid, and get them removed from the captive power generation. Yeah. So we are just plan to set up a pilot project here, and after installation, maybe in the next month, it will be they will be installed on the power. Yeah, and we'll just analyze how it impacts and how the tariff they can make it do it. Because if we just make a pilot, so other industrialists can see it and they can cope up with this. and also battery calculation and some financial stability and feasibility. They will just analyze all these things to make them understand actually if we just replace with their captive and go back to the PSS, that will be helpful for them for a long term, because maintenance almost very minimal stage compared with the other generator or some other else. Next, please. Okay, you just here, you just a generation, it just with the incorporation of the battery, it's a very smooth, the generation will be very smooth because battery can, when the load is excess, they can absorb, the battery can absorb the excess load, and when they just, some grid or bus bar is under load, then they can deliver some power to the, and make bus bar or grid stable. And energy attribute, that is actually in low peak of, in my last presenter, he explained very nicely, actually, if we just charge in a low tariff, low peak time, then we can charge the battery and discharge in the peak hour, where the generation cost is very, very high. So we can make it is a very best option for doing all this. And also there is a complaint, our common complaint from the industrialist, that the frequency is not stable, that we can make it more stable in this thing. And we can make the grid more reliable and stable, and make our industrialist and bulk load consumer who needs very quality electricity, that can be a good option if we just incorporate battery storage in the term. Also, we have an analysis battery storage in many aspects. Okay, if just we install the battery utility, they just own the battery storage, what would be the case? And if the industry, they own the battery storage, what would be the case? That would be so many options came out in our study. Next, please. The challenge actually, whenever people actually very much reluctant whenever they just cope up with the new technology. They just they do not feel comfortable to adopt new technologies. So considering their initial cost, still battery is very high, and there is another issue actually here. It is not yet been bankable because the interest bank rate is very high. So from borrowing the finance from a local bank, it is not very feasible. And there is a space actually is a very concern. Even 2 megawatt of power or 1 megawatt at the 2 hour backup power, then it requires almost 40 feet container type of space is required for this thing. So many industry cannot afford all this thing, but still here is a challenge in particular areas. And the climate condition, actually battery storage, lithium ion battery is already heat. And to make it, we need here in Bangladesh, actually we need AC system to cool it down. But in the European country or some others, I have seen that is the only airflow, air cooling is good, because their ambient temperature is very low. But here sometimes the temperature is, and that makes actually the internal consumption sometimes makes very high, almost 15 to 17% is a energy transition is there. And another issue actually input tariff is very high, where the generator actually generator is importing at almost zero tariff on 1 to 3% duty here in Bangladesh for industrialists or other users. But still, battery storage in our country is around 60%, 58 to 60%, and sometimes more. So there makes a huge gap and differences. So regulatory and incentive, no incentive and regulatory, yeah, there are, but we can work on it, and we just make the make it comparative. We just suggest our NBR National customs or some other organization to hike up the generator cost, and by imposing some tax, and also reduce the tax to make the battery more compatible for all the other industries. And battery cost, or so far the battery energy generation I had, considering all this price, is 5 cents per kilowatt hour. Now we have just calculated so far. So next. So that is my short presentation. Actually, a lot of things to share, but the time was very short I am given. So thank you.
Thank you very much. So from Belize to Bangladesh, let's move on to Namibia.
So from Belize to Bangladesh, let's move on to
Thanks, Amit. Yeah, so good morning, everyone. Let me just figure this out first. Okay, so I'll start off just by briefly giving you just an overview of Nampa and Namibia, just to give you the context of why this battery project was developed. So this is Namibia. As you can see, most of the load is either in the center or the northern part, so 90% of the load is situated in the northern part. We have long transmission lines. We're importing from South Africa, and we're importing from Zambia as well. Our current installed capacity is 347 megawatts of Ruacana hydropower station situated in the north. We have a 120 megawatt coal-fired power station, but really it's probably a 40 megawatt power station. It's very aged and it's being retired soon. And we have a Anegas diesel power station here in the coast. And then we have about 150 megawatts of renewable energy distributed throughout the country. As I mentioned, we have imports from South Africa, Eskom, 100 megawatt, 180 from ZESCO through the Northern Interconnect, and then also a ZPC import contract, which is being wheeled through the Eskom grid. So you'll see here about 65% of our energy requirements are imported, and the rest are supplied within the country. So when we started this project, of course, there were lots of challenges, and one being lack of ancillary services market in Namibia or even in the SAPP region. There were no best regulations, and fortunately our regulator is now working on regulations, and so there are some draft regulations under consideration. And also there was a lack of familiarity with storage technology between the utility and the regulator. So what would PPA look like? What revenue models are there? Is it a generation asset? Is it transmission asset? And all those things needed to be understood. Of course, at the same time, there's opportunities, because Namibia is transitioning from a single buy to a modified single buy. That essentially means that now private sector can also participate in the generation space and supply to customers which NamPower is supplying to. At the same time, there are opportunities to improve grid resilience through ancillary services, by mitigating the adverse fluctuations of renewable energy. As you've seen, we have quite a lot of renewable energy on our grid. So I forgot to mention our maximum demand is 650 megawatts, so 150 is quite big. And then obviously there's also the high cost difference between peak power and off-peak power, so especially within the SAPP region. So then we obviously decided to take on this project, and how this project culminated in, we actually received a 20 million euro grant from KfW, and obviously we had to do a feasibility study. The feasibility study commenced in Q1 2020, was completed in Q3 2020, and actually the grant was shortly after approved. The outcome of the feasibility study was that with the 20 million euro grant, we can probably put in 58 megawatts, 75 megawatt hours, so 1.3 hour storage. And so you'll recognize this 2021, 2020 period where the world was quite going through some things. and we actually launched the pre-qualification for the battery project in quarter 3 of 2021, and completed it in quarter 1 of 2022. Now, when we finalized the pre-qualification, we realized that, well, battery prices were going in the wrong direction. They were going up because there were still lots of effects from the COVID pandemic, inflation. China still had hard lockdown, and as we know, most of the manufacturing facilities are situated in China. And so we then decided, okay, let's split the bidding process into a two-stage process, where in the first stage, we ask the market, okay, what can you do for 20 million euro? And you tell us, and then we'll consider it, and then we'll ask you for your prices subsequently. So we went to market, we asked them, what can you do for 20 million euro? And they said we can do 51 and only 1 hour storage. So we then updated the bidding documents, finalized that, and we then went out to tender for 51 megawatts, 1 hour storage. And we actually awarded the bid, and we are now having contract clarification as we stand here. We're in that phase, and hopefully in the next 2 weeks we would be able to conclude an agreement and sign the EPC contract. And then commercial operation 2025. So just the project description in a page. Power capacity 51 megawatt, energy capacity 51 megawatt hours. It will be cycled once a day, and I'll go through the use cases so you see how we do it. 15 years calendaric lifetime, round-trip efficiency of 82%. That includes the auxiliary consumption, lithium-ion technology, situated in the Omaruru region, and that's important because it's in the northern area. So as you saw, the long transmission line that's coming in from the south, where we're importing most, that I'll explain that just now. And CAPEX 24 million euros, so NamPower is actually doing the transmission interconnection as part of the project, and we used just the 20 million grant for the battery, so we see what it looks like. And that commercial operation date, July 2025. We'll have to see how that moves if we finalize the agreements. So use cases. So of course you will have seen there's a 400 kV line, if you look closely on the first, coming up from South Africa. So actually that line is quite loaded during the peak periods, and there's a dynamic transfer limit that if the load grows over 160 megawatts off that line and a fault happens, then we could have a grid issue. And so whilst we are preparing the second interconnector from our Squirkaboom, the BESS would help in reducing the overloading or reducing that 160 limit. So it will be discharged particularly during that period. So another use case is another slide. I was told to reduce my slides. Is obviously arbitrage. So arbitrage and peak shaving actually coincide, because the time when you're discharging is when the electricity prices are high, and when you're charging is when the electricity prices are low, and the demand is also not so high. Another use case is the provision of emergency energy. Now, because we're importing from Eskom, at times what we say we'll take and what we actually take is not the same thing, and that means we're paying emergency tariffs. And so if we had installed the battery energy storage, we could have reduced, and this was actually a study we did quickly from the period July 21 to 2022, a total of 30 gigawatt hours of emergency energy was procured, and had we installed the BESS, obviously we could have reduced that by 6.5 gigawatts. So we would have seen when we are taking more than what we should have, and the BESS would dispatch, because it's north of the line, it would make sure that we don't take what we shouldn't. In addition, we had some aging infrastructure at the Omburu substation, so that's also one of the motivating factors why we selected that site. So the SVC was due for replacement, and obviously it supports the grid with voltage by injecting and absorbing reactive power. So in this image here, we did a dynamic study to show that how quick the SVC responds with a three-phase fault here, and you can see it takes more than 10 seconds to clear the fault, whereas if we installed the battery energy storage with a power oscillation damping at Omburu, we can clear that fault much quicker. So that's another use case for this battery, and also why the debate goes on whether it's a generation or transmission asset. And of course, just in terms of the lessons learned, obviously it was during the procurement process when we saw the increase of battery cells in this period here, or the cathode material actually, of between 10 and 30% between the previous year, and also the lead times at the time for projects, that one was up to 1.5 years from contract signature. In addition, you couldn't secure contracts over. It was you either agree now or we don't do the deal. So it was difficult, especially being a public entity going through a public procurement process, and that's why we decided to also split and maybe buy some time whilst we wait for things to recover. And having done that, we then also saw the value in having a two-stage bidding process, because it actually helps the employer understand what's happening in the market, what the market is saying, what the prices look like, and what's feasible. But also it helps the bidder to understand what is our requirements, what is it that we need. Sometimes they don't understand what we're asking in the bidding documents, and I think the fact that you have a period where you can answer clarifications and have clarifications back and forth, I think that greatly assisted the process, and hopefully in the next 2 weeks we will sign an EPC contract. So thank you.
Another excellent presentation from Namibia. I learned a lot. Few takeaways from me and for the audience. 50 megawatt and 51 megawatt hour, so, and $24 million. So we are looking at roughly a $500 per megawatt hour. This is a similar price we also got in Maldives. So I think that's the number, right? $500 per megawatt hour? Yeah, something like that. And you also presented very interesting on ancillary services, the response of 10 seconds and 6 seconds for three-fault. And you also mentioned about arbitrage, which I also presented in my slides. I wanted to understand, when you divide this 51 megawatt hour, just if you can give us rough numbers, how much is the spinning reserve, what you're doing? Because many times what happened, we observed in Mauritius and many other countries, spinning reserves are hardly used once in a month or one, and ideally should not be used, but so monetizing spinning reserve becomes a challenge, you know. And when we use batteries as spinning reserves, again, it adds to the cost, but you're not able to calculate the LCOE. So in this 51 megawatt hour, how much spinning reserve you're doing, how much ancillary services, and how much arbitrage, and what's the reason?
So that question is a bit tricky to answer, so I'll try. And so one of the use cases of BESS that I didn't add up there is ramp rate control, which is sort of a secondary reserve. And because most of our ancillary services we actually procure from ESCOM, so it's difficult to answer that question because they are our slack bus, and so our frequency and everything is controlled through that. Yes, we need to have secondary reserve on our grid to fulfill our other SAPP requirements, because we're a member of the Southern African Power Pool. But to give you an answer on the split is difficult now for me. so I don't know.
No, absolutely. Again, I didn't have the answer to this question. The reason I brought it up because, as I discussed yesterday, storage is a very complex asset class. I keep using this word because it's easy to monetize solar, coal or wind or gas, because you get electrons. In BESS, it becomes so complicated on how and when to measure, and then most of the time BESS is being used for ancillary services and spinning reserves when you are not able to monetize BESS, and people say BESS is expensive, you know, and so these are challenges we are facing. All right, time for Q&A. Bridula. Wait, we'll get you a mic.
afternoon, everyone. My name is Mridula from International Solar Alliance, and I have a question for the Bangladesh speaker, if he's still around online.
Yes, please go ahead with the question.
Okay. So, Mr. Munir, you mentioned that you have a lot of unplanned three-wheelers, electric vehicles in Bangladesh, and there are also in parallel issues about variation in the renewable energy, which has negative impact on the grid. So have you tried to do a study on linking the possibility of the battery swapping centers being put up for charging those three-wheelers, and those swapping center batteries getting charged by solar? So that will have few positives. Number one, you'll handle the, of course, you will increase the utilization factor of the solar, and also you will have more use case for the battery installation. And number three, you will have a good demand of the battery because, as you said, the EV three-wheelers have a huge component in your transportation. Thank you.
Thanks, Mridula. A long and complicated question, but Frederick, do you have a question on e-mobility? Because this is a question on e-mobility now. Okay, so Mr. Munir, please quickly answer. I also want Tarek to come on this question on e-mobility and storage and three-wheelers in Bangladesh. Munir, over to you, please.
I can hear actually. Can you hear me?
Yes, please.
I can hear any of you. Probably some net problem is there, but first question I just heard that was the battery storage, tri-wheeler battery charging system. But during the daytime, actually, all the rickshaw pullers they just engage with the with the pulling this thing, and in the evening and late night they used to charge their battery, and it takes a huge time. So, battery solar charging station, we have demonstrated some of the solar battery system through our utility and our government arrangement through the utility. We did it, and just charge the battery and replace the battery with the new but it did not work that much. Actually, it did not work that much, and that is the unplanned ways. And they're just hooking all these things, and some other ways they just charge it. And here is the problem actually. So it is not the planned wise. If we have a charging station is there, we can understand how many power is consumed and when we can assess it. But due to unplanned way, everywhere they just charge it and create a huge impact on the in our grid, transmission, distribution grid.
Thank you very much.
And another part of the question I didn't hear actually, probably the network problem or some other things.
Thank you. Tarek, would you like to come in or?
I can hear actually. Can you hear me?
Yes, Mr. Munir. Yes, we are also requesting our colleague Tarek to quickly come in, especially on the work which he has done on e-mobility. Please.
I can hear. Am I audible?
Yes, Mr. Munir. Yes,
I can hear.
Yeah, come here.
Thank you, Amit. So the question was on when it makes sense to have the charging relying on the grid, and when it makes sense to have most of it using local solar generation. And so it pretty much depends on the situation of the distribution grid. We have at SMAP recently published a report that looks at this specific topic of e-mobility in power systems and identified key challenges that are related with the charging of electric vehicles. I invite you all to visit our website to see that, and it highlights the fact that electric mobility, depending on how it is planned, planning being here the key consideration, can either be an enabler of an energy transition or really a nightmare to power systems. And so key solutions here to be envisaged by power system planners is indeed the combination with on-site solar generation. Depending on the use case, you might indeed be able, for instance, for certain fleets to have higher reliance on on-site solar generation and a nice coupling with on-site storage. For instance, you mentioned this example, the case of electric 2- and 3-wheelers that rely on battery swapping, whereby when you're done with the battery, you change it. And that nicely can be combined with local storage solar, because while being charged in the battery swap station, those batteries behave more or less like a local storage, and so they can help while not being used in the vehicle in ensuring that the microgrid, the mini grid, or at least the behind the meter, the solar is utilized in an optimal manner. So we do have at the World Bank a few examples where we are looking at this specific use case. I'm for instance, in 2 weeks, going to São Tomé and Príncipe, where we be supporting with the solarization of health facilities, and some of the health facilities will see the deployment of electric 2-wheelers that will help with the logistics. And there, we'll be closely looking at how we can maximize the solar content. And really, the message here, we're looking at those different aspects, is that there is no one-size-fits-all solution. It is really important that the e-mobility solutions, the power system solutions, look at things case by case, and where possible, have those solar content be maximized. And yesterday you had a very nice also contribution saying also that on the soft side, when it comes to charging, we can ensure that we optimally ensure that charging is happening at times where solar can have most of its contribution. So, yes, those are just a few examples.
Thank you, Tariq. Frederick.
Thank you, sir. Frédéric Verdol, World Bank. A question to all the panelists. I noticed that all your battery projects are standalone. In most of the OECD countries that developed storage, they developed it in parallel of their variable renewable energy. And then you having variable renewable energy developed. So was it a question at all that you asked yourselves when you thought about developing battery storage, to have it done by the private sector and then developed, or was your thinking much more to have first battery projects that are public, standalone, in order to know the technology and know what to ask the private sector later? So I just want to know this. And one quick question for Fred: what is the difference between off-peak and peak in terms of pricing? Because with the grant that you got for your first battery, I think it may be the most viable battery asset worldwide. So just to know the off-peak peak difference.
Fred, you want to take it?
Yeah, so thanks for the question. So the first part of your question on standalone, so you will have seen in my first slide, there's 151 megawatts of renewable energy already on the Namibian grid. And so it was more a question of, we have so much renewable energy on the grid, number one. Number two is, we don't know the technology. Number three is, there are no regulations. We need to understand the technology and before we commit any PPA. So we're not saying we're not welcoming to private sector, but obviously there is a modified single buyer, and private sector can then participate in the existing framework that is there. And obviously our grid operator will have to see how they deal with the base that comes on that's coming from private sector. On the question of the off-peak and peak tariff, so those tariffs change year on year. I can get back to you with exact figures if you like. And because there are no regulations, we are also having this debate with the regulator whether we are allowed to charge at SAPP rates because the SAPP rates are cheaper, or whether we should use the NamPower tariff. And so the answer is also not so straightforward because it makes sense for NamPower as a utility to charge the base from SAPP, but whether the regulations will allow us to do that, we'll have to see. And obviously discharge when we need
it. For Belize, it's a very similar case, being that we do not have any current regulation for BESS systems. So the idea was that we would get this first under public authority so that we would learn from this so that we would then be able to invite the private sector then to participate in future projects as well. And very similar to what Mambia is doing is that energy arbitrage and energy shift. To give an idea of the differential in prices between low off-peak powers or the time that we would be charging our battery, which would be at night, that would come around to an average of about 4 US cents per kilowatt hour. While the peak hours where we have difficulties with the interconnection with Mexico, those prices can come in at times all the way up to 60 cents US cents per kilowatt hour. And that is not due to an energy cost, but due to congestion charges at the substation itself.
Thank you very much. I'm sorry we are running out of time, and I need to close the session with quick comments on the important question which Frederick asked. See, Frederick, what's happening is, and my panelists have already alluded to it, and you rightly mentioned, globally the trend is towards blended contract, where you're looking at solar plus storage. The reason is we want to hide the storage cost under renewable energy, right? So we are looking at cost which can match with thermal, right? 4 to 6 cents. If we exclude the 6 countries, 4 to 6 cents, and then you're able to sell the storage with 4 hour, 2 hour, or maybe for ancillary services. The single contracts on battery storage, as Namibia mentioned, are either coming on EPC basis, where utilities want to hold on to the assets to look at both spinning reserves or ancillary services. Given the case of example of India, which recently bid out 1 gigawatt hour of battery storage, standalone, private sector driven, and a capacity contract, where they were trying to have all the use cases, arbitrage, looking at peak shaving, ancillary service, and all together. Because the reason is, again, this is true for SIDS, because we have installed so much solar and wind, and we are late in installing battery storage. So they want to bring battery storage quickly so that they can absorb the existing solar and also stabilize the grid over here. All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much, and thank you to all my esteemed panelists for such a great contribution. Thank you. I hand it over to Juliet, and we are going for a quick break.
Bon.